This is they're gonna go run away somewhere.
They're really secured in there.
I was playing with it and see what I was doing. Okay, this is one. Whoever needs. This is next page. This is the next page must be this.
But like page one or the whole?
On the bottom I have numbers if you see. This is the next one. 3-8. It's not the same?
Oh, each page.
That is the
Sorry.
same,
Yeah.
Here's the next sheet.
Thank
And then here is the next sheet. Thank you. Okay, maybe when we get up to it, I'll get it out again. Let's do this in the dark. This is 1, and this is 2. Okay. Okay, so we are continuing the Mamar Usefartem Lachem, and we are on page 157. So now it begins to explain what does it mean to work on the spheres, and what does it mean that one includes the other. I just want to make it clear, so it shouldn't be confusing, that there are two terms that are used. One is the term spheres, and one is the term koiches. Spheres is usually referring to the Hashem's attributes in the spiritual realm. You don't use the word koiches for that, you use the word spheres, 10 spheres. When you talk about the 10 faculties in a person, which means my ability to understand, chachma, bina, das, feel, that's called koiches. Koach is like the faculties of the human faculties. So naturally, whenever we talk about the interaction between the spheres and the effect of the spheres, we're talking about two realms at the same time. What happens down here is a reflection of what happens up there. What we do down here causes things to happen up there, which are identical, corresponding. So in other words, everything down here has a counterpart up there. I have chachma, there's chachma up there. I have bina, there's bina up there. So if we say that the first week starting from Pesach, we're working on the sphere of chesed, and what's happening is that the sphere of chesed is getting more light, it means the sphere up there is getting more light, and my faculty of chesed down here, my attribute of chesed also is getting more light. And then we'll talk about, which we're going to talk about now, is what does it mean to work on these faculties? What are they? So page 157. Nitin lahaven zeis. In order to understand it, we'll understand it mikoiches hanefesh, from the faculties of the soul, the hamidah shebelev, and the midos, the attributes in the heart. Now we're talking about the attributes in the human heart, not the attributes up there. And again, if I If I move forward, you're following me in the English, I have the sheets with the next pages. Chesed, Hamida Rishayna Midas HaChesed. The first attribute is attribute of Chesed. And it must understand that even though Chesed literally means kindness, but this is a name that includes all the attributes that you can possibly imagine. Again, if you would have to make a list, if someone would say, make a list of all the kinds of emotions that a person could experience, the list would be a very long list. 20, 30, 40, or maybe more. But according to the Torah, all the emotions that a person might experience are all included in 7 categories. And this is Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod Yesod, Malchus. And sometimes we say that all the 7, even more generally, are included in 3, which is Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes. Sometimes we just break it down to 2 categories, but it's not a contradiction. It's just one is more general and one gets more specific. So even though Chesed means kindness, but in this context, really, Chesed is a general term that will include all the different kinds of emotions that fall under a certain category. So the way to define Chesed, if you would be writing Webster's dictionary now for Mashiach's times, and people want to look up Chesed, so what you would write is any emotion that brings a closeness between me and something else outside of me, that's Chesed. Any emotion that makes me, emotion is a feeling, something that moves me in a certain direction. I'm moved, and if it puts me into motion. If I'm moved in a direction where I'm moving towards something outside of me, that's Chesed. So usually the classical example for that is love. Because when you love someone, it means you're being drawn towards that person. The classical example for the opposite would be hate. Because with hate, you're moving away. It's a distance. But for example, an emotion like anger would also be gevura because it's moving away. And then try to think of any other emotion and you'll see, you can analyze it. Is it an emotion that creates a closeness between 2 things or creates a distance between 2 things? So we're going to work with Chesed as the classical example, Ahava, love, but it's not only love, it's any kind of emotion, but this makes it easier for us to understand. Because the truth is, obviously there must be a connection to the word Chesed, because when you are kind to someone, it comes from love. You have a certain love to that person, and therefore you're being kind to them. Commercial Kosev, as it says, Hashem says this about the Yidden. Abbas Olam Havticha, I love you with eternal love. Al-Kain, and therefore, Meshachti Chesed, I give you and I provide you with kindness. In other words, Hashem is saying, because I love you, I'm giving you kindness. So Chesed and kindness are connected. So now, what is the difference between Chesed Sheba Chesed or Gevura Sheba Chesed? The first day when we count, we say Chesed Sheba Chesed. The second day is Gevura Sheba Chesed. So the answer is, let me first give the introduction. With all the 7, it's the same principle. There's a primary emotion, and then there is sort of a what branches out, an extension of the primary emotion. So Chesed Sheba Chesed means the primary emotion is Chesed, and the way the emotion manifests is also Chesed. Chesed Sheba Chesed hu Ava Gluya is open, exposed love. In other words, I love this person, and it's being manifested through an open act of love. So if a mother kisses her child and embraces her child and is saying loving words to the child, buying the child a gift, that is coming from love, Chesed, and how does it manifest in the way of love? There's a natural inner love. For example, like a father to a son, it's a natural, deep love. What would be Chesed Sheba Chesed? When this natural love that the Father has to the Son, which is internal, but when it's exposed, when it manifests in a way that kulam royim, everyone can see this. What do they see? Something happens or something's done that manifests that love. In a certain way, when it's exposed or when it manifests, there's nothing new. The love is there all the time. The father or the mother as well, who loves her child, that love is there all the time. The only difference that happens when she kisses the child or gives the child a gift or says loving, kind words to the child, that means that now it's being revealed, it's manifesting. When it does manifest, okay, so this is simple. What's Gevura Shebechesed? Which means the primary emotion is chesed, love, and yet how does it manifest in a way of Gevura? When the attribute of chesed manifests in an attribute which is the opposite of chesed. So chesed is love, and Gevura would be sinner, hate. How could it be that love would manifest in a way of hate? Gevura shebechesed means sinner sheba mitzad chesed, when there's a hate towards someone because of love, which means if I hate my friend's enemy, in other words, I have someone that I love, and I know that someone else hates that friend, and they're trying to undermine that friend. And as a result of that, I hate that person. So the fact that I hate that person is actually a result of, and it's a manifestation of my love. So again, if a mother has a child going to school, and somebody in school is bullying her child, and she's very upset at this child, screams at the child, scolds him or hates him, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but you get that emotion. Yes, it's an emotion of Gevura, but it's born out of love. Because I love my child, I hate whatever it is that goes against my child. You follow that? So the primary emotion is chesed. How does it manifest? Through Gevura. What's Tiferes? Tiferes ha'yofi haruchni. Tiferes is spiritual beauty. If a person makes a picture, draws a piece of art with a lot of different colors, that picture, that art is so much more beautiful than a picture that has only one color, like black, for example. So what does that mean? I think this needs to be explained a little bit, because often I hear the question, people stop and think, how's Tiferes an emotion? Okay, chesed, love is an emotion. Gevura, anger is an emotion. Beauty is not an emotion, it's a description. Right? So the answer is like this. Here, sometimes it says different ways of expressing it, but the general idea is that beauty is not in one color. Beauty is when there's a lot of colors, and there's another condition. The colors have to blend. If you make colors that don't blend, there's no beauty to it. And it's not just about colors, it's about everything. Imagine, let's say, the art of design. You have a room and you're designing the room. In the room, there's a couch, there's a lamp, there are curtains, there's furniture. You can't just plop in anything you want. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but there's no beauty to it. The beauty in design is that there's something about the couch and the curtains and the furniture and the carpet and the paint on the walls and the pictures. Every detail in the room matches. Right? You agree? Hello? Now, what does it mean that it matches? How do you define the word matches? What?
Like it doesn't conflict with each other?
It doesn't conflict with each other. Okay.
You like it.
What?
That's important.
You feel pleasure when you look at it. But what you said doesn't conflict with each other. That's what I was looking for. You're giving the negative, I'll say the positive. What?
They have like a union.
Right. They blend. They come together as one. In other words, when you walk into the room, you see one single picture because everything, think of music. It may be a little bit easy to understand. Imagine you have a symphony, but they're not playing together. This one's knocking with his drums, with his violin, and this one's blowing this trumpet, but no one's coordinating it. You hear each one of the instruments, but you hear 12, 13, 15, 20 instruments. When it's done properly, it blends in it. You hear one sound. And that one sound is a blend and a harmony of so many different sounds. So in a sense, what we're saying is the beauty of a lot of things coming together in harmony is actually the fact that the detail loses itself to the klal, to the general. All the sounds that you hear from the instruments, they all blend in. And instead of hearing the detail, the individual sound, they all lose themselves to a one big general sound. And that's where the beauty is. And the same thing is with design, same thing is with color. That you have different colors. What does it mean that it matches? It means that they lose themselves. And when you look at it, you don't see the individual color. You see the beauty of everything together as one. So in a sense, what we're saying is beauty, according to Torah, is not what it is, but it's the opposite. It's when first of all, beauty can only be when there's a few things. One thing is no beauty to it. Because the definition of beauty is the details losing themselves and becoming in harmony with something bigger than the individual. That's the beauty. Whether it's in music, whether it's in design, whether it's in a person, whether it's in clothing, the same thing. Everyone agree?
I don't understand how that's emotions.
How does it come to emotions? Okay, but how it's not with emotions that you do understand?
Like beauty. Yeah, I understand.
That's the definition of beauty, when you have a lot of details. So the same is with emotion. There are different emotions. In general, there's the chesed emotion and the gevura emotion. Beauty is when I can have the different emotions that are going in different directions, and yet they blend in together and they go in harmony with each other, which means it's not about chesed, it's not about gevura, as if there's something higher than the chesed and the gevura itself, and therefore they could come together. So for example, the typical example would be if a person did something which was very, very positive, they deserve a reward. I would give them chesed. Person did something negative, they should be punished. I do gevura, I'm disciplining them. Then there's a third possibility where a person did something wrong and really they should be punished or dealt with harshly. But then I feel compassion for them. And not only compassion, but I feel that if I'll deal with them in a more gentle way, in a nicer way, in a compassionate way, that'll actually influence them, inspire them to change and do things right. So what I'm doing is I'm going to, let's say, do whatever had to be done, but in a milder way, in a softer way, in a gentler way, not such a harsh punishment, or in a way I would cancel the punishment. So in that case, there's a mixture here of chesed and gevura, which means I'm not doing the chesed because I want to satisfy my desire to do chesed. And I'm not doing gevura because I want to satisfy my desire to do gevura. There's sort of a purpose higher than both. And when there's a purpose higher than both, chesed and gevura could work together to accomplish that purpose. So for example, there are people that are chesed people, which means they're very kind, they're very good. So sometimes when they need to use gevura, they just can't. I once saw a book, the title is How to Say No. Probably a lot of people could use that book. How to say no? I just can't say no. If you can't say no, you get into trouble. But why is it? Because chesed is what makes me feel good. And gevura doesn't, I can't say no, but sometimes you have to say no. Then there are people that love to say no. They need a book. I never saw it, but there must be a book that says how to say yes. Some people love to say no. Whatever you want, no. And have a good reason for everything. In other words, that means that the attribute is something which is about me. I love to be a chesed. I love to be a gevura. When two things blend together, it usually indicates that there's something higher. And because of that, they can all work together in harmony. So that would be the example of somebody who really deserves a punishment, but yet I'm going to feel compassion towards them, and I feel that compassion will actually inspire them to change, and therefore my chesed and gevura are working together. On one hand, I'm showing them chesed. On the other hand, I'm showing them gevura, and by doing both together, that'll give a much better message than just chesed alone or gevura alone. I mean, I'm thinking of it mainly like in terms of education. Say a child that's not acting, you can be very chesedic. Every time they do something wrong, you give them more gifts, and you say, "I'm please, just listen to me. I'm going to give you another gift and another gift. Be good." Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's discipline. You did this and this, therefore you can't go to play today. You can't have you're spending money. You can't have this. I'll lock you up in your room. All these kind of things is gevura. And then there's the best way is when there's a harmony of chesed and gevura together. In the language of Gemara, the right hand should bring you closer and the left hand to push away, which means actually both attributes are working together for a higher purpose. So that's why it's called Tiferes. So any kind of merger is really Tiferes. So for example, if you have 10 different people, they say if you have 2 people, you have 3 opinions. So you have 10 people working together on something, and they're working in coordination. They're working in harmony, and it's working out good. That's beauty, because each one is sort of giving up, surrendering their personal interests for the higher purpose. So even though my nature is this, how could these 10 people work together? They have such different natures. And the answer is because there's something higher than themselves. And that's where the beauty is. The beauty is not in what is, but in what isn't. In that, in language of Chassidus, in the bittul, in the losing myself to something higher. So if it's people coming together, but in this case, we're talking about attributes coming together. Midas HaTiferes, the attribute of Tiferes, who has shiluv shel chesed gevura. That's the merging and the interaction of chesed together with gevura. How to deal with a person really doesn't deserve to be dealt with chesed. In fact, really he should be dealt with gevura, with discipline, and should be rejected and be dealt with harshly. Tiferes is shalim reishenoi royal and hagashal chesed. In spite of the fact that he doesn't deserve to have chesed, nevertheless, I will have compassion for this person. So now, what is Tiferes shebechesed? The natzel es a chesed rak the dvarim ruchim u'ma'ilim k'may tzedakah. So to use this if a person has this faculty of Tiferes, which is the ability to bring together different kind of emotions and allow them to merge together, it should be used only for good spiritual things like tzedakah, harbat tzedakah, kadema. What does it mean? Tiferes lohisem. Pirkei Avos, it says to live the kind of life that's going to bring Tiferes to one that doesn't. He explains very little over here, but I think what it's saying is that sometimes you can use the attribute of compassion, but in a negative way. For example, having compassion for a criminal in the wrong way. Like here, we live in a beautiful country called the United States of America. And really, it's a country of freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of everything. And it's a country that deals with things in a kind way. The Rebbe always referred to this country as a country of kindness. But on the other hand, that kindness sometimes goes to such a degree that it's counterproductive. It's counterproductive. It's the opposite of what you want to accomplish. For example, Mishu Poshe, somebody is a criminal, and you're very kind, and you let him go back on the street, and he does it again and again. I think I told you this. What? Wherever there's this open-mindedness and liberal-mindedness, you got to be open, but it's a very stupid thing because it's open to the wrong degree. In America, if you read, statistics, most of the people that unfortunately end up murdering somebody have already been in jail, have been in jail for something attempted or something, and they were released from jail, and then they go back eventually, and this is what they do. We had a story here in Crown Heights about 3-4 years ago, where someone, and just recently it was on all over on the internet because they won a court case. But this is a man that somebody saw him. It was Shabbos morning, and he wanted to be nice, and he greeted him and said, "Hi, good morning," and instead of responding the same way, he started to curse him and scream at him, and then he jumped at him and started to beat him, and he ended up in the hospital. He almost killed him. He was trying to choke him. And thank God somebody walked by and they saved him. When they took him to court, this man was in jail 40 times, not 14, 40 times, for all sorts of things of this nature, attacking people, harassing people. What is he doing out on the street? Chesed. Or rather compassion, but it's compassion in the wrong place. We just had this in the Rambam. Very interesting thing the Rambam says, very famous quote from the Rambam, that when you're compassionate towards a sadistic person, you're being sadistic to the compassionate. Achzari, mishum rachem al achzari, hu achzar lerachmanim. I once saw a letter that a student, a professor wrote his student. The student was a student who was studying engineering, and the professor failed him. And he writes a very heart-wrenching letter. And he describes how much money he had to borrow in order to go to college, and how he was up for hours, and how much he had to sacrifice to the college, and years of studying and learning. And after all that, you failed me. And do you realize what it does to me and how it's affecting me? And goes on and on and on. He's begging for compassion. So the professor writes back, I really have compassion for you, but who's going to have compassion for the people that are going to walk on your bridges that you're going to build? In other words, if you failed, obviously it means you don't know the subject properly. So you're going to build a bridge which is going to have flaws, and then unfortunately it's going to collapse. And if that happens, who's going to have compassion for those people? So when you look ahead, compassion towards somebody who is a mean, sadistic person is not compassion. That's the opposite. But if you have compassion in the right place, then it's a positive thing. So I think that's what it means, that it should be the proper Tiferes is when it's compassion in the right place, in the right direction. And every person has this desire. Nobody wants to feel defeated. In English, we call it a power struggle. Two people are having a disagreement. So sometimes disagreement is purely academic. You say this, I say that. Sometimes it gets emotional. And that is because I don't want to be defeated. I don't want you to prove me wrong. So in general, when a person is challenged by something, in one way, there's something positive about it. Because when you challenge, you know how you would tell a child, you have to go to sleep. I don't want to. You must go to sleep. It's bedtime. I don't want to. You know, this child, he never listens. I bet you, he just won't listen. He doesn't even know how to listen. I'm sure if I tell you something, you won't even listen. No, I could listen. No, you don't. You can't listen. And all of a sudden, we call it, reverse psychology. You tell me you can't listen, or you can't do this. You're a baby. You can't do this. When you say that, suddenly he goes ahead and does it. He just 5 minutes ago, he was screaming, I'm not going to do it. Now he's running to do it. Why? Because you challenged him, and he has to show that he is not being defeated. So adults have the same, we all have this nature. It's a nature that I don't want to be defeated. I want to be victorious over what? Over anything that's challenging me. So when a person has love, that's chesed, and I want to manifest that love through, let's say, through also in a chesed shebe chesed, and I'm using all my faculties, so I'm using other faculties as well in harmony. Now, so let's say as a result of that chesed, I'm going to do a favor to someone. So now when it comes to going to do the favor, there's going to be challenges. Something's going to stop me in the way. Someone's going to try to discourage me. I have to go on a long trip to get it. My car breaks down. There's a big rain. There's a storm. I can't do it. So netzach means I'm determined to do it. So netzach is like determination, to have perseverance, to carry through my decision to the end and not to be stopped. And that's the victory, not to let me be defeated by other things. Minutzach. Yeah. Is that the word in Hebrew?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. No. Rabbi, but what? We need to do this in our...
Did anyone find those books that I was talking about yesterday from Rabbi Jacobson?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. What?
I have in the dorm. They were saying like every day, like I want.
You have it in the dorm? We should have a few here in school, though, so I'll take it out of the bookcase and put it on the tables. Basically, he sort of spells it out in very practical things. But on a personal level means, let's say I make a hachlata, I buy a fabrengen, or I'm davening. It's one of those days, I don't know why, but today my davening was great, and I feel good, and I'm inspired, and I make up my mind that today I'm going to be strong about this and this issue. This person that annoys me, and this person that's always being, in my way. Today I'm going to be nice to them, and that's it. I won't lose it. And then it happens, and I see I'm having a struggle again. So netzach is that I'm determined not to fail. I'm determined to carry my hachlata to the end. That's netzach. So if it's something which is chesed, so netzach is about chesed. What about if it's gevura? Which means, let's say, I made up my mind, Gvura, I have to be Gvura with my own Yetzirah, not to give in to certain temptation. I'm tempted to do something, I know it's wrong, and I have to hold back from doing it. So that would be Hoid. Hoid is the next one. Hoid is determined not to do something, hold back from doing something that I shouldn't do. So that's determination. Which, how would you say determination in Hebrew? Determinatio. Determinatio. That's in every language. What? I don't know what the word would be. But you know what determination is. What?
I don't.
Okay, so Levatseya, look at the words. Levatseya tachesed haroi b'chol matzav. Don't let anything stop me from doing my chesed that I wanted to do, whatever the chesed is, whether it's helping someone, doing someone, you made achlata for yourself to do something or to do something for another person, and it becomes a little bit difficult. Usually when you're inspired, everything is easy. It's easy, everything is easy. When it comes to actually doing it, that's when it gets a little bit more challenging. If I have to risk something or even risk my life to save or to help another person. So that's determination, but in the negative, that I'm holding back. Like Avraham Avinu, when he held back his love and he went to bring Yitzchak as a carbon, that would be like something like Hoyt Shebechesed. He was determined to do it and wouldn't let anything get in the way of not doing it. So in a certain way, the first three attributes, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, are the emotions. The next three is when it comes to execute the emotions. Netzach, Hoyd Yesod. Netzach is determined to do it. Hoyd is determined to withhold or whatever I need to do, not to do something, and not to allow something. Like in this case, I'm going to help somebody, but I have to risk my life. And normally you don't want to do that. I'm going to hold back those feelings and do what I need to do. And Malchus, Yisod Shebechesed, is this kashrus achazaka shel ha'oyev el ha'ohev. The bond between the one that loves to the one that's being loved. They're bound together. And Malchus Shebechesed, usually Malchus refers to speech and action. When I'm actually, all these feelings are in the heart. Malchus is when it comes from the heart outside, either by speaking words of love or doing acts of love. These are the 7 midos. But they're all that the midah is love, and its manifestation is also in a way of love. That's it.
What would you say the bond between the person helping and being helped?
Right. In other words, when a person is giving something to someone else, there is the bond between the two people, and that's what leads for me to give it to the other person. So the yesod is the bond, is kashrus. Maybe it has to do with the yesod literally means a foundation. Maybe it has to do with the fact that even in a building, how does the building stand? It would topple over. So it has to go deep into the ground, and the earth holds it together. That's the foundation. Then the whole building could stand. So the foundation is the connecting point between the building and the ground. In this sense, the building would be like the mashpia, and the ground would be the makabel. And the foundation is the point where they connect. So Yesod is that connecting point, and that's what precedes the actual giving hashpah from the mashpia to the makabel.
You're saying like in a relationship that was already established, that's what the motivating factor is that you are connected already, that you have a bond, or that the act itself of that like transaction is creating? I guess
we find very often that people have all sorts of wonderful feelings. It doesn't always translate into action. I once heard a rabbi speaking. His name was Rabbi Hecht. He lived in Chicago. And he said he was on the highway and there was a long line of traffic. And those days it was way before internet. So he just got out of the car. Everybody's wondering what happened. And the message came back like a chain message that down the road, there was a fire, a house near the roads. The whole house burned down. There's a woman outside with about 5 kids. And they're just standing there, and that's blocking the traffic, the fire trucks and everything else. So this person says to the rabbi, really hurts to see a mother with 5 children, homeless, the whole house burned down, everything is gone. It hurts. So the rabbi says, well, it hurts me for $100. How much does it hurt you for? In other words, when you say it hurts, in Yiddish is actually an expression. To love and to pledge doesn't cost any money. To give and to actual that, so feelings are nice and fuzzy and cozy and beautiful. To act, there has to be a strong connection to wherever you're giving that you're actually going to go through with it to the end. I was once in a shul with the gabbai, before the reading of the Torah, acts on the table, says, I want you to know, this is California, so it makes sense. I want you to know that down the block in the other shul, there was a robbery this morning. They got away with $3,000 in cash and $25,000 in pledges. So basically, to pledge, it doesn't cost a lot of money. Yeah. What? You search Shebechesed? What does it mean, the bond? Good question. I just want to add, the next teacher's here. Say, okay, I have time to think. I'll think of an example. Okay. Belina there. Yeah, this is one page in English. You have any pages in English?
I have the first one.
Okay, this is the first. That's the last page in English. And this is...